Has anyone here ever created something like for someone else and then realized it was actually for you? Social media posts, pieces of advice as you're telling someone else how to fix all their problems and then realizing that actually works for you. Pop ballads. I know that's something I've got in common with everyone in the room, producing a pop ballad. But turns out last year, like, that was the theme. And it's kind of funny because I did not realize that was the theme of last year for me until like December of last year, which is funny because it was December of 2022 that I was just sitting at my computer at my desk, and I typed just a random message into the Slack channel to the team. And I remember hitting send and just thinking, like, how did that come so easily? Because obviously December 2022, this was right before last year's Grow Retreat, so everything, forward-facing was set up for the retreat we were about to put on, but behind the scenes, just like this year, like the team and I were already working with the Spark brand and the Spark theme and talking about what are we gonna do for Spark in 2024, this is gonna be really cool. And I typed out this message to the team. I don't even remember exactly what the message was about. I just remember looking at the last 3 words at the end of the message and realizing that was going to be our tagline for the event. Spark something incredible. And it took a second because we have wrestled with taglines and branding and all of these things. And so to land on that so quickly, all of a sudden, I was like, this is different. I want to know why. Because that's how my brain works. When something interesting happens, I want to know why. So I started looking into it, especially like knowing, hey, if I'm going to set up a 2-day event for how do we spark something incredible, like I need to understand the process so that I can make this a let's spark something incredible for you for the next 2 days. So I start looking into it, and at the time I did not understand what the process was because, as I said, we have struggled with taglines and branding. We've had some hits, we've had some misses, like in 2019, we did our very first themed Grow Retreat. I have a hint for anyone crazy enough to get into the events world. If your audience can't pronounce the theme, it's not a good theme. But the weird thing, like that took me months to come up with. I wanted a theme and I wrestled to come up with a theme for months. It took us 4 days over a 6-week period with a professional branding company in 2018 to rebrand to Grow Disrupt when I realized, hey, we're changing, we're not a sales training company, we're gonna put on events. 4 full days, professionals over 6 weeks. It took us years to land on our tagline. So to go from that to in seconds landing on a tagline for the event, knowing my themes, like it doesn't take me a long time to land on our themes. I have themes through 2027 at this point figured out roughly. To go from that to custom music and custom coffee and custom tea blends and custom room scents, and like there had to be a process. And I found it. There's 3 pieces. 3 pieces to spark something incredible. First and foremost, you have to have a vision, a spark, to pull you through the challenges, because there are going to be challenges. Number 2, you have to create and then protect a space where those sparks can show up. And number 3, you have to bring the right people together. So that's what I want to explore with you this morning, starting, of course, with the vision. When I kicked off production, how many of you guys heard the pop ballad we produced, the Fly pop ballad, Fly and Entrepreneur? Okay, good, all right, good news. We tried really hard to make sure everyone heard it at least once before showing up so that as I stand up here rambling about it, you're not going. But when we kicked off the production for this, in my mind, this was for other entrepreneurs. I have had a lot of conversations with people where my job in the conversation has been to help remind them, like, this is what it's like to be an entrepreneur. It's okay. It gets better. I promise. Like, I understand it's tough, but you're gonna get through it. And And I realize I can't always be the one to have those conversations. Like, I enjoy having them, it's part of my job, but I truly enjoy getting to be there for people like that. But first of all, not everyone in the world knows me yet. Not too full of myself yet. Lori's fault, she really talked me up here. But second of all, I'm sleeping sometimes, so I can't always be in those conversations. So we found the song, we sent it into production, and in my mind, it was for other entrepreneurs. And then we had a summer of the most ridiculous highs and lows. In 2021, we had a summer of all lows. Some of y'all knew me in 2020. It was rough. It was last year, it was whiplash. Some of the things were simultaneous highs and lows. The day that I found out that a small business in San Antonio, Texas, was outranking a billion-dollar tech firm on Google for their own search terms. Yeah, that was really, really cool, except I found out because they sent me a letter threatening to sue me for trademark infringement. Not that, according to my attorneys, I had anything to worry about if we could have gotten to court. But the question was, could we get to court before they just ran me into the ground? So the whole summer was just wow to WTF. And sometimes it was 10 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I don't think anything exemplifies this quite as much as the production of Fly. When I went to Susanna originally, I said, hey, can we possibly come up with a custom song for the Grow Retreat? Every year I'm trying to figure out what am I gonna play for the opening for the Grow Retreat. I wanna play something that feels more modern. The classical songs are great, but they don't always land. I wanna play something that feels modern, but I don't wanna pay a $10,000 licensing fee. So can we create something? And Susanna, because she doesn't say no to me as often as she should, but don't tell her that, please. She said yes. She's sitting right there. So she says yes. So I write down a bunch of lyrics. I'm this is the vibe that I want this song to have. I send them to her. 2 weeks later, I get a message back in the Slack channel. I download the demo track, and I'm listening to this song and crying. That was a highlight moment of realizing sometimes there's stuff that we do that I look at it and I'm we did that? That's really cool. It doesn't feel like something we came up with. And this was one of those moments to sit there and go, we have our hands on something really cool. And originally the plan was just to play it today and that was it. We were never gonna release it. And I realized listening to the song, I said, we need to actually put this into production. So we put it into production, we put it out there. And at one point in time, we had 3 producers bidding to be the producer of record on the song. So highlight right there, right? And then things got a little messy, particularly around the music video. And I will never forget, for the rest of my life, sitting at the Emily Morgan Hotel, looking across the bar at this guy, and just being speechless. Because across the bar from me is an Emmy award-winning videographer. And we'd worked with this guy earlier in the month, and it went phenomenally well. We had a one-day shoot for a client, and Susanna put out an ad online, and this guy applied, and then she double-checked he actually had the Emmys, because that's what you do when you live in San Antonio, Texas, and an Emmy award-winning videographer wants to work with you. And it was great. He did phenomenally at the shoot. Everything was great. We get to the end of the shoot. I look at Susanna. I said, look, we've got this really cool videographer in town for the summer. He's just visiting family. What if we did a music video for Fly? And once again, Susanna, not saying no to me, says yes. So we had 2 weeks, right? This guy's in town just for the month of August, trying to pick up extra jobs, hanging out with family. So we have 2 weeks. We went from not even thinking we were gonna do a music video to having a plan, to coming up with the concept, the shot list, getting the locations, everything in 2 weeks, which, as I've learned more about doing, that was insane, and I will never do that one again. But we figured this out, right? And now, at this moment in time, sitting at the Emily Morgan, we are 2 hours into the first of 2 shoots, because we had to break it up. We had a Saturday night shoot for all the inside shots, and then we had a very early Sunday morning shoot up on the rooftop and for the outside shots. And we're halfway through, we're 2 hours into the Saturday night shot, and I have just spent the past 2 hours being argued with over every single shot. And being told, we need this shot. No, we need this shot. To the point where, like, I'm sitting here going, did he read any of the documents we sent him? Like, he asked us for shot lists, he asked us for inspo, he asked us for that. We sent him everything. And he's acting like he didn't read any of it. So we get to dinner time, and I send Susanna off because I'm like, he and I, we're getting on the same page here. This is not working for me. We sit down, and for the next 30 to 40 minutes, he proceeds to not answer any of my questions about whether or not he got the shot list or the inspo videos or anything we sent him. Instead, he gives me a list of all of the things I need to do if I want Grow Disrupt to be successful, including a little thing called SEO, which is search engine optimization, which is how you rank up on Google. Backstory, that's the same week that I got the letter from the tech. So we get to this point in the dinner, and he looks at me and he goes, "You look pissed." Matt says, I don't even have sleeves to wear my emotions on. They're just here. So I said, I am. I said, I am. Look, here's the deal. You're my videographer. What I need you to do is get really good shots. I don't need you to tell me how to run my company. You're not my marketing director. You're not the producer of this video. You're not the director of this video. I need you to get really good shots. That's what you're here for. And I think I was a little bit nicer. And he slumps in his chair, throws back his third vodka tonic, and says, okay, I'll get the shots. I just don't feel like I'm being used to my fullest potential here, because at the end of the day, I'm just a con man. What? So I said the only thing I could think of at the time, which was, I don't think that's typically considered to be a good thing. And he slumps a little lower in the chair and he goes, I'm a con man. Which is how I know he said it, because he said it twice. And then he goes, I build confidence in other people. And I had a Princess Bride moment of like, I do not think that this word means what you think it means. Like, oh. And then the very next thought that went through my head was, how do I get the camera back from that side of the table? Because I'm pretty sure he's mentally unstable and I'm about to have to fire him. And I think he's the kind of person who would throw my camera on the ground and break it because he's mad. And what is really interesting to me is that at no point in time that evening, arguing with this guy for 2 hours straight, and if I'm honest, he started having some issues at the beginning of the week. Like, phenomenal at the beginning of the month. Beginning of the week, we started having some issues. And like Susanna and I were like, we're gonna get to the end of the shoots with this guy and then we're not talking to him again. But we're gonna get to the shoots, it's gonna be, but something happened for this guy at the beginning of the week. And it was a challenging week. It's the week, of course, finding out that I might be getting sued. And at no point in time sitting there, opposite this guy, realizing Susanna and I are gonna have to finish this video on our own, never did the thought cross my mind, well, I guess we're just not gonna get the video. Because at that point in time, I had vision, I had clarity, like I knew what we were, shot by shot. I had an idea of the impact this music video was gonna make, and there's no way on earth I was letting that go. And of course, I got my highlight moment on October 6th when we released the song, and I got to see it going live on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify and seeing people buy it. That was weird. We never thought anyone was gonna, we never intended to sell this song, and then all of a sudden people were like, how do I buy it? And we're like, you wanna buy it? So now we had to figure out how to get a distributor. That was while getting text messages from Mike Michalowicz and Jesse Cole, two of my mentors and icons, like saying, this is really cool. Like that was my highlight moment. But the middle was definitely a little messy. And I think that's how it works, right? A lot of times in business. We start high, we end high, but the middle's like, eh. And it's actually, if you listen to Fly, it's one of the choices we made very intentionally with the song. If you listen to it throughout the song, it actually gets fairly chaotic towards the middle of the song. The lyrics actually reference this. It goes, but every step I take, 2 more send me back. Successes feel like failures, no count. Right? This idea of like, I'm taking 2 steps forward, right? Or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. There's no end to the failures. Like there's no, that is messy. And if you listen to the music gets kind of chaotic too, because there are multiple ways that I can play, that chord, well, all of the choruses, right? We have the accompaniment, so I can go, I can play the same octave as the voice, but I can play it as like an accent. So I don't play every note, but I play, just a. I can play the harmony where I go an octave up from the vocals. But in that second chorus, as you'll see me play in just a minute here, I play every single note in the same octave as the voice, as the vocal line, because my goal is to put, it's chaotic. There's a lot going on. I want to represent that in the song, because that is what happens sometimes in the middle. It gets chaotic, but it is also at the same time beautiful. And I think part of it is it's beautiful because like we know it's going to resolve, right? We know it's going to sort itself out. That's what songs do. They resolve. You have 3 to 4 minutes, right? You get the conflict, the resolution, it ends really pretty. But I think you know it's going to resolve too because you've been there. You've had the same thing happen in your business, in your life, where you were dealing with challenges, you had the vision, and you pushed through. And yeah, it got chaotic, but you got to the other side of it because you had the vision. You could spark something incredible. So step number 1, we have to have the vision to spark something incredible. Step number 2 is creating and protecting a space where those sparks of brilliance can show up, because the sparks of brilliance are not always the ones that show up. Cue eukarya. The key here is if we want to create that space, we have to create a space where it is safe to take risks. And that's really quite challenging because the brain is hardwired to avoid risks. Like this has been caveman days. It has hardwired us avoid risks. Like that mushroom could be food or like it could be dead. So let's just not. So we have learned to avoid risks, and there's another element that comes into play for every single one of us in this room, and that is that high achievers, and neurodivergents in particular, tend to, tell me if I'm the only one doing this, hold ourselves to ridiculously high standards. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be the only one there. But the problem is when I'm holding myself to a ridiculously high standard, if I know that reading's 21st concerto is supposed to sound like this, it's really hard to practice when it sounds like this. The problem is without the practices that sound like this, I never get to the practices that sound like this. When I have to produce perfection, when I have to produce the epitome of perfect, I can't. Remember I said I kept creating stuff for myself last year by accident? So this keynote has been in the works since last February. Like I start on the next year's opening keynote like a year in advance. Like I'm working on what am I gonna do, how am I gonna do this? So I've known my key points for quite some time. And then in December, I needed to go back into the studio with Susanna to record a couple of things for today for y'all. And I know that leading up to a performance, you rest. Like the time to practice for a performance is the months leading up, not the day before, right? And I was so stressed out about intonation and vibrato and phrasing and dynamics, and I was practicing like marathon sessions all the way up till the morning of the studio. And it was the worst recording session I've ever had. Not that I've had that many, but I was in tears. It was rough. See, the thing is, when I have to do it perfect, I have no room for it to not be. And here's the thing. When you're recording, I don't have to play the whole song through perfect. Like, I can play a chunk, get it really good, and then play the next chunk, get it really good. We can piece it together. I don't have to play it perfect. But because I was so freaked out, not a single one of those takes was perfect. So we're going to release the version that I'm about to play for y'all in February instead of at the end of this event, because fortunately, my team held space for me to have to remember it's okay to not do it perfectly, and came back and said, okay, we'll record in February after you relax. There's a saying from Jesse Cole that lives like rent-free in my head. He says, I don't care how many times we fail, I care how many times we tried. Because yes, we're gonna go out to the field, we're gonna try a stunt, it's not gonna go well. We're gonna try and light the ball on fire and pitch it to the hitter, and it's not gonna work, and people will laugh. And then we're gonna go out and try it again. We're gonna catch it on camera, and it's gonna go viral. It has to be safe for us to make mistakes. It's our job as the business owner, as the leader, to create and cultivate and protect that space. Because when we do, not every spark that shows up is going to be brilliant, but we have space for the ones that will be. And speaking of team, that's point number 3. You have to have the right people on your side. Because a spark isn't going to do much in a vacuum, right? But when you have Tinder, when you have a catalyst, when you have a handful of sparks, i.e. when you have your vision, when you have your people, when you have your space, something really incredible happens. When everything comes together the right way, we can create something unbelievably powerful. Fly is a perfect example of this. Like, Fly would never have happened without, I've seen the original lyrics that I gave Susanna. I've seen what we actually produced, and I don't know what happened in between. Like, magic. Because Susanna had space to experiment, to come up with something really incredible. And I know, standing up here, I get a lot of the credit for what happens at these events, and I think, like I was trying to figure this one out. I think it's because I am usually responsible for cultivating the final version of everything that goes out. But none of this stuff happens without the sparks that come from my team. And none of that happens unless I have Susanna and Rachel and Marcio, Matthias and Lally and Matthew, unless they are bought in to the vision of what we're building. You can ask anyone, even our AV staff for today. The first thing we did yesterday, we sat down and I shared the vision of what we were creating for y'all for the next 2 days. I have to share that, right? Because here's we don't live in a day and age anymore where people just want to go to work. No one is going and clocking in and clocking out and just, 40 years, give me my gold watch. We live in a day and age when people want to have meaning. They want to have purpose. They want to be plugged in to what matters. And that's our job as the business owner to communicate to our people. And the only way we do that is if we do communicate the vision of what we're building. And I talk to a lot of business owners, and I think there's two reasons that a lot of times we don't communicate that vision. The first one that I see is sometimes I'll talk to business owners who are afraid to let anyone know, like they kind of like just hide it a little bit, because this way if I don't make it, no one knows, right? If I miss, if I fail, no one knows. So they don't tell the team what they're building. But the other one that I see more often is just that we get busy. You know what you're building, I know what I'm building. Like, we live and breathe it every day. Our teams don't. And we have to communicate that to them. And I know I harp on this a little bit, but the thing is that we need those people, right? In 2022, our theme was Connect. And I talked about the Clydesdales, in case someone doesn't know. They're the Budweiser things, right? The big, okay? So if you have a single Clydesdale and you hitch them to a load, they can pull about 5,000 pounds, which is pretty impressive because they only weigh about 1,800. So that's pretty good. But if you get two Clydesdales, you hook them up together, they don't pull 10,000 pounds. They pull 20% more, 12,000 pounds. You get two Clydesdales that know each other, that have pulled before, that have a driver they trust, they can pull 18,000 pounds, almost double. Something really amazing happens when we have a good team. So what I want to do for y'all this morning is I want to show you the difference of what one versus multiple sounds like. What I would like to do for y'all now is I want to play Fly for y'all. But I want to play Fly the way it was originally intended. Stephanie's version. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need a couple of things real quick. We need to make some changes. So some of y'all know I have a couple of violins. This is Rosa. Rosa is my performance violin, and love her to death. She is carbon fiber. She can sit on stage all day long, humidity, heat, nothing bothers her. I could probably drop her and she'd be fine. Not that we're testing that. But she's got a very different voice. She's very clear, she's high, and Fly was not written to be played on Rosa. Fly was written to be played on my Cremona-made violin. As Susanna and I like to call him, my Aretha Franklin violin, because he's got like this husky voice, lots of depth, warmth, all these pieces going on. So if we could, we're going to bring, for the first and probably only time I'll ever let him out of the house, because he's only 12 years old. He's pretty young. All right. Please bring me Faye. Okay, but there is one more change that we need to make up here real quick. Most people don't know this, but Fly is actually a duet. So when you hear the song, there's one vocal, and so a lot of people assume it's a solo piece. And it's not. The only reason that Fly works is because you have a vocal line that is dealing with all of the problems and the challenges and the struggles. And behind it, you have a voice that is constantly picking it up and reminding it of what it can be. You have the violin that is there to draw it up. And the original plan was for me to play this with a pedal. So I was going to play it through once, and then we were gonna record it and play it back, so I'd play with myself so you could hear this. But if I'm fully honest, that's not really the best way to do this. So I have spent the past 4 months trekking back and forth across the city to meet with my instructor to share the vision of what I wanted to create for y'all today, so that I could have her come up here and join us so we could play Fly as it was intended. Please welcome to the stage my instructor, Laura Scalzo. definitely created fly for everyone else. And last year, the number of times that it was there for me was pretty unreal. Because the thing is, this is tough. What we're doing here as small business owners, it's tough. This was a tough year to be a business owner. We're going into another tough year to be a business owner. Like, election cycles are always a little bit tough. But when we have our vision, when we create and protect a space where it's safe, and when we have the people, we create something really incredible. And that is what the next 2 days are for you. This is your space to reconnect with your vision, as Juanita and as Alex are talking about this, to know this is a safe space, as Stan and as Susan and as Aaron are all pushing you to think beyond what you might otherwise. This is your safe space, and these are your people. They are here to see you succeed. We are here to see you succeed. So for everyone who trusted me to come back this year, many of whom knew nothing more than the theme would be Spark, and Stephanie was gonna put it on. Some of y'all didn't even know the theme was gonna be Spark, which, love y'all. You guys, y'all, the amount of trust y'all give me is humbling. Some of y'all knew nothing other than Steph got excited and said, you should come. So thank you to those of you who did that as well. Welcome to the Grow Retreat 2024. Spark.